I would say that deregulation is something that they can learn, and I think the Trump administration already has learned that and has brought that to his administration. One of the biggest problems with the US is that they have too much red tape. They have lots of regulations that actually keep a lot of innovation and young businesses from being able to bring their products to market in an effective way. And this slows down progress. It allows big multinational corporations to gobble up the small guys before they even have a chance to compete. And then this just, makes monopolies even stronger and change, less prolific. And whereas we see in China, they basically have said, we welcome all kinds of entrepreneurs to test out their technologies in our cities. As long as you don't blow them up, you're free to, test out your electric cars or whatever you have. And this allows more innovations to happen at a quicker pace. And this is what actually generates economic growth, not more regulations, not more tariffs and quotas and all this other nonsense. But this is, what we have in the U.S. And so if there's one thing I wish I could drive home to policymakers is that, this is an area that could be an easy way to generate more growth. So that would be my answer. Just take your pick. The negative bias is that China's an authoritarian nation, that China cheats, that China steals. Just listen to Trump's stump speeches when he was on the election trail. Basically, whatever he was accusing China, those are the biases he was reflecting that people already were sharing. And this was created over many years, perhaps even decades, of anti-China bias being propagated by the US media. And it's, take your pick. It's basically, they just see, China as a peer competitor, as one who is constantly spying on the US, that is taking our IP. So I would say those are the main biases. So I think the best thing that the Chinese government can do is what any government can do, which is to basically live your best values, right? And be a model. And that's what the US used to be. US used to be a model for the world because they were upholding democratic values. They were basically trying to recognize the rule of law and all these other things that they espouse. And by being a role model, I think that's the most powerful way to influence other nations. Unfortunately, the US lately has not looked so much like a role model. And this has hurt the US really, because it's going around telling people, do as I say, but not as I do. So if people perceive hypocrisy, then you've lost all your influence. So basically, if the Chinese want to retain respect and influence, I think it just needs to be an upstanding role model in the world, and just show that, it is for lifting the impoverished. It is standing up for, the basic rights of humans and live it. And that would be the best way to alleviate concern from the West. Simply talking about it or forcing, their ideals on anyone, that would, be a dead-end road. China can't do anything to change the US mind, because China can do a lot of things they think are good actions, but if the US is intent on spinning China as the evildoer, they will misinterpret every single action coming out of the Chinese. So that's why it's a losing battle trying to control and influence someone else's perception. All you can do is control yourself and control, how you behave on the world stage. And this is, the only way. And it's not just the government. Like every single Chinese citizen needs to be a role model in the world because, negative perceptions can be transmitted very easily just by, a tourist being really rude and maybe spitting on someone or who knows what. And that can, travel virally on the internet. I mean, it just doesn't take much for negative things to spread. And so it's so important for China basically to, be the upright model for themselves, believe in themselves, be secure in themselves, and try to do the right thing. And hopefully people will actually pick up on that. But I don't think there's only one set, of prescriptions to do it. It has to be fully embodied. The title was not something I came up with. The publisher came up with that title. And the commissioning editor approached me asking me to write this book. So I had to go with what they were proposing. And I basically didn't really seriously think China's economy will collapse because I explained in the book there were many different aspects of why their economy was actually rather robust and why all the Western critics were wrong about all the weaknesses of China. But there is certainly a scenario where China's economy will collapse in my mind, and that is if it engages in a serious conflict with the US, which leads to a military exchange. Then all bets are off. And certainly that chance is increasing every day. Hopefully that will never come to pass, but nothing is ever 0% or 100%. And so it is a fair question still. China's growth is going to be dependent on a number of things. One, its ability to internally grow its consumption and upgrade its own people. Certainly, if it was in a peaceful situation, China can really do a lot and maintain this 7%-ish kind of growth, because if you look at continental Europe, they were growing pretty rapidly, and look where they are now. They're a very rich society over there because they were continually innovating and helping like all the poor people become middle income or rich. So China certainly still can do that, given that there's still a large agricultural population that can easily upgrade. So if China focuses on its internal, its domestic economy, it certainly can do a lot there. It also would depend on the Belt and Road Initiative. Clearly, if that was successful and that China doesn't get too much pushback from other nations, particularly in the Middle East and Central Asia and Africa, China can certainly, really garner a lot of growth there because there are large populations there, low-hanging fruit. If they become dynamic economies, well, that certainly can propel great demand for China's goods and services. And so this could really also be a surprise upside if that works. But, these are not easy things to accomplish because, again, you have a lot of politics, a lot of people who are going to push back, including, you know, U.S. recently announcing that they have teamed up with India, Australia, Japan to counter the Belt and Road Initiative, to, you know, kind of find their own consortium of ways to sort of block China's trajectory, so to speak. So, you know, there are a lot of uncertainties here, but assuming the best case scenario, then of course China can maintain this growth for the next 5 years.